You don't feel like you're failing. You're just drifting. You still wake up. You still scroll. You still respond to messages. But something inside you feels flatter than it used to. Like your edges are slowly being sanded down. And the dangerous part? You don't even notice it happening. There was a time when you felt sharper, more curious, more intense, more alive inside your own head. Now your days feel predictable. You consume more than you create. You react more than you decide. You agree more than you question. And it doesn't feel dramatic. It feels normal. That's what makes it dangerous. Psychology has a term for this quiet shift. It's called habituation. Your brain is designed to adapt to repeated stimuli. The more something becomes routine, the less attention it requires. At first, this protects you from overload, but over time, it dulls you. You stop feeling urgency. You stop feeling friction. You stop feeling the discomfort that once pushed you to grow. This isn't laziness, it's cognitive economy. Your brain prefers efficiency over expansion, so it builds shortcuts. And those shortcuts slowly define who you become. There's another layer: social conformity. Humans are wired for belonging. Research in social psychology shows that the brain processes social rejection similarly to physical pain. The anterior cingulate cortex activates when you feel excluded. So without realizing it, you calibrate yourself. You tone down your intensity. You soften your opinions. You match the emotional temperature of the room, not because you're weak, because your brain equates belonging with survival. And average is safe. Average doesn't get rejected. Average doesn't threaten anyone. Average blends. But here's the quiet cost. When you constantly optimize for comfort and belonging, you slowly disconnect from ambition, from originality, from friction, from the parts of you that once felt dangerous in a good way. And if you're honest, you feel it in small moments. When you close another tab, when you postpone another idea, when you choose distraction over difficulty, you don't collapse, you just soften. And the question becomes, is your comfort slowly reshaping your identity? You're not broken, you're adapted. Your brain evolved to conserve energy and maintain social safety. From an evolutionary perspective, standing out too much could mean exclusion from the tribe, and exclusion meant death. So your nervous system learned something simple: blend in, save energy, avoid risk. What you call becoming average is often just your survival wiring doing its job too well. The problem isn't that your brain is weak. The problem is that your environment no longer requires survival. It requires intentional growth. And survival wiring doesn't automatically update itself. Psychological mechanism. Think of your brain like a path in a forest. The first time you walk through it, it's difficult. Branches hit your face. The ground is uneven. But every time you take the same path, it becomes smoother. This is neuroplasticity. Neurons that fire together wire together. Repetition strengthens pathways. Comfortable routines become highways. Challenging behaviors remain overgrown trails. Now add dopamine. Dopamine isn't pleasure. It's motivation and prediction. It spikes when your brain anticipates reward. Scrolling gives small, predictable dopamine pulses. Effortful creation gives delayed, uncertain reward. Your brain prefers predictable, so it gently nudges you toward the easy highway. Not because it hates growth, but because it values efficiency. Here's the mental model. Your brain has two modes: energy saving mode and expansion mode. Energy saving mode repeats what works. Expansion mode builds new capacity. The default is energy saving. Expansion requires friction, and friction feels uncomfortable. So you interpret discomfort as a sign to stop. But biologically, discomfort during growth is simply your brain building a new path. If you don't deliberately create friction, your brain will optimize you into predictability. And predictability feels like average. So the real question becomes, how do you shift from autopilot efficiency to intentional expansion without burning out? That's where most people get it wrong. They try intensity. What you need is precision, not motivation, not hype. Precision. 1. Introduce controlled friction. Deliberately choose one small action daily that feels slightly uncomfortable, but aligned with growth. Not extreme, just slightly inconvenient. Mild stress activates the brain's learning systems. The release of norepinephrine increases focus and neuroplasticity. Small, repeated friction strengthens new pathways without triggering shutdown. For example, instead of scrolling for 20 minutes in the morning, spend 10 minutes writing one paragraph. Not a masterpiece, just a paragraph. You're not building a career, you're carving a new path. 2. Reduce passive dopamine. Create boundaries around high frequency stimulation. Designate specific windows for social media instead of constant access. Frequent dopamine spikes reduce sensitivity over time. Your brain recalibrates its reward baseline. Lowering stimulation restores motivation for effortful tasks. For example, move distracting apps off your home screen. Access them only through search. The extra friction interrupts automatic behavior loops. You're retraining reward prediction. 3. Raise identity standards. Shift from outcome goals to identity statements. Instead of "I want to succeed," use "I am someone who practices daily." Self-perception theory suggests you infer identity from repeated actions. When behavior aligns with identity, cognitive dissonance pushes consistency. You act to match who you believe you are. For example, if you identify as someone who trains, skipping feels inconsistent, not because of guilt, because of identity tension. That tension is psychological leverage. 4. Engineer environment over willpower. Change physical cues before trying to change behavior. Behavioral psychology shows environment shapes action more reliably than intention. Cues trigger routines automatically through the basal ganglia. If your guitar is visible, you practice more. If your book is on the desk, you read more. For example, prepare tomorrow's workspace tonight. Open document, notebook placed, distractions removed. When morning comes, momentum is easier than resistance. 5. Reintroduce voluntary discomfort. Choose controlled discomfort weekly. Cold shower, hard workout, deep conversation. Voluntary stress increases resilience by recalibrating your threat response. You teach your nervous system that discomfort is survivable. Your amygdala becomes less reactive. Growth stops feeling dangerous. For example, have the conversation you've been avoiding. Not aggressively, honestly. You expand your emotional range, and expansion rebuilds sharpness. 6. Integration. Here's the simple model. Average isn't a personality trait. It's what happens when energy-saving mode runs unchecked. Your brain smooths your edges to conserve fuel. But every time you introduce small, intentional friction, you sharpen them again. Think of yourself as a blade. Unused metal dulls. Sharpening creates friction. Friction creates heat, but heat refines the edge. You don't need to become extreme. You need to become intentional. The moment you choose expansion over autopilot, you interrupt the drift, not dramatically, quietly, consistently. You're not behind. You're not incapable. You're just adapted to comfort. And comfort is persuasive. But here's the quiet truth. The part of you that feels restless, that subtle dissatisfaction, that sense that you could be sharper, that isn't ego. It's awareness. And awareness means you haven't gone numb. You're not becoming average. You're just standing at a fork in the forest path. One direction is smooth. The other is overgrown. You already know which one leads somewhere new. The question isn't whether you can walk it. The question is whether you'll choose to.